The number of Sundays and holidays in 2024, including the April 10th general election, has been confirmed as 68, the same as last year.
네, 올해 2024년의 일요일 및 공휴일 수는 오는 4월 10일 국회의원 선거일까지 포함해 총 68일로 지난해와 동일한 것으로 나타났습니다.
We've only got 67 now.
Well, because we've
We
already
had one
had one.
yesterday,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But Paul, isn't this year a leap year, which means we have one more day than usual?
Yeah, but not one more holiday.
No, exactly. Tell us more then.
Yes, so this was confirmed at the end of the year, and we've already started the new year. We had our first public holiday, and of course this year, not only our usual public holidays, we'll also have the April 10th general election as a holiday. According to some agencies, looking at the number of non-working days for people who work 5 days a week, that's going to climb by 2 next year, and that'll stand at 119.
This year.
Oh, this year, excuse me. 2025, 2023, I don't know.
That's right.
The longest holiday we're going to get is Chuseok. This year, that'll be from September the 14th. We'll have 5 days off. And there's going to be 5 holidays in total that span either 3 or 4 days.
네, 아직 헷갈립니다. 지금이 2024년이라는 감이 좀 많아가지고 아직도 이게 입이 착착 붙지는 않는데요. 올해 2024년에 총 쉬는 날이 119일인데 아까 얘기한 일요일과 공휴일 68일, 그다음에 토요일 52일 해서 총 119일 이렇게 쉬게 되네요. Of course, it depends on your workplace.
Exactly. Some places you get your holidays off. Some places you have to work.
Yeah.
People are regular workers. Some people are freelance. But
Some
generally
people still
speaking,
work on a Saturday as well. That's why.
yes.
Yeah.
But certainly 68 holidays and Sundays. That's how many we get, and I hope everybody enjoys them all.
That's right. Holiday. Let's look at that expression.
Yes. So here we're talking about a day off. When we talk about a public holiday or a national holiday, a religious holiday, it's a day when people do not work. In the UK, for example, we have bank holidays that fall on a Monday so that people can have a long weekend. The other meaning that it has in the UK is vacation. To go on holiday. When we use it as a verb or we say, I had a lovely holiday, that means we went away somewhere and had a nice time. But here, we're talking about days off.
And last month, the holiday season.
Oh, that's
reached
very
its
true as
peak.
well.
Yeah.
Yes, we talk about the festive season as the holiday season because you get a day off, you get a holiday.
That's right. So holiday can have several meanings. 공휴일, 휴가, 방학. 이라는 뜻이 될 수 있고요. 특히 이제 연말에 holiday season이라고 하면은 크리스마스 시즌을 말하기도 합니다.
Yeah, well, you know where holiday comes from. Take out the I, put
Yeah.
in a Y, make it into 2 words. What do you get?
Holy day.
Yeah, it was a holy day, like Christmas was a holy day, so people didn't
Interesting.
work.
That's why. 네. 또 문화적인 차이를 좀 말씀드리자면은 우리는 날짜를 기준으로 하죠. 그러다 보니까 어떤 때는 이게 월요일일 수도 있고 토요일일 수도 있고 그렇지만 많은 서양 국가에서는요. 날짜 기준이 아니라 처음부터 애초에 요일 기준으로 이렇게 공휴일을 하는 경우가 많습니다. 그러다 보니까 매해 날짜가 바뀌어요.
네.
그러나 무조건 월요일 쉰다. 뭐 아니면 무조건 목요일 쉰다. 이런 예를 들자면은 미국의 Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I can never remember when Thanksgiving is because it's not a set date. It's
맞아.
like, is it the 3rd Thursday or the
Something
4th
like
Thursday
that.
in November? Yes.
맞아요. 그래서 서양에서는 요일 기준으로 이런 공휴일들이 많고 우리나라는 날짜 기준이다. 문화적인 차이입니다.
But then we have the same issue in Korea when it comes to the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
When we have Solal and Chuseok, they're not
Right.
fixed on the solar calendar.
That's true as well. holiday 봤고요. 그다음에 to be confirmed.
Yes, if something is confirmed, it is decided, it is fixed. So these holidays and these Sundays, they have been fixed. They're not going to change. We have 68 of them. That's your lot.
Yes. confirmation이 명사 형태로 확정이라는 뜻이 있고요. to be confirmed는 확정되다입니다. Well, here's the headline again. The number of Sundays and holidays in 2024, including the April 10th general election, has been confirmed as 68, the same as last year. Let's move on to the second headline.
South Korea has begun its 2-year term as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, marking the country's 3rd time serving in such a role.
한국이 유엔 안전보장이사회 비상임 이사국으로 2년간 임기 활동을 시작했습니다. 우리나라가 비상임이사국 역할을 맡는 것은 이번이 세 번째입니다. Alright. Well, tell us about the UN Security Council and us being a non-permanent member.
Yes, well, it's time number 3. We were elected in 1996 and again in 2013. And there are 10 non-permanent members, these
Right.
elected members. And they have the same status as permanent members, except for the veto power and the right to convene meetings when they're chair. They have the right to do that. So, South Korea, what are we going to do as being on this council? Well, raising global awareness of North Korean provocations and human rights violations is a big thing, I think, and also responding to cybersecurity and other issues. So it's a big deal because a non-permanent member also has to help sort of mediate any conflicts between permanent members and, well, find a way to make the world a more peaceful place. And at the moment, of course, we have the Middle East, the crisis in Gaza, we have the crisis in the Ukraine, we have the North Korean issue. There's a lot going on to deal with.
Exactly. And the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are, of course, the UK, the US, France, China, and Russia. That's fixed.
Yes.
That doesn't change.
No, it doesn't. But the 10 elected members, these non-permanent members, do change on I think it's a 2-year basis. So for the next 2 years, South Korea is on the council.
자, 상임이사국을요, 영어로는 permanent member라고 합니다. 말 그대로 하면 영구적인 회원이라는 뜻이네요. 자, 그리고 비상임이사국은 non-permanent member 이렇게 표현을 하고요. 10개 국가인데 2년 임기가 이제 시작이 됐습니다. 우리나라 같은 경우에는 이번이 세 번째라고 말씀을 드렸는데 앞서서 96년과 97년, 또 2013년과 2014년 이렇게 두 차례 맡은 바가 있고요. 비상임 이사국은 여러 가지 회의에서 이제 중요한 역할을 하지만 veto power는 없죠.
Yeah, that's the one thing that non-permanent members can't do. So
Yes.
that's only the permanent members, the 5 permanent members can do that.
거부권, veto라고 얘기를 하는데 그것은 없죠, 당연히 비상임 이사국이. Let's look at non-permanent.
Yes, meaning it's not permanent, meaning it doesn't last forever. A synonym is temporary,
Yeah.
but temporary sounds a lot less permanent than non-permanent.
Right.
Because temporary, we think of something being very, very short.
그렇죠.
Whereas these are elected members for 2 years. Therefore, temporary feels a little bit flimsy. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel strong enough of a term. So
Yes.
instead, we use non-permanent, meaning they're not there forever, but they are there for 2 years.
네, 영속하지 않는다라는 뜻의 non-permanent를 써서 UN 안보리의 비상임 이사국 non-permanent member라고 합니다. And Korea, along with the other non-permanent members, will be serving their term for 2 years.
Yes, don't get confused with tennis. I'm not talking about a tennis serve.
No, that's the wrong sound. I don't know. Never mind.
You play with very soft balls, Sue.
I can't.
Thwack, 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 thwack.
테니스 공 소리를 못 내겠네요. 네, 서빙.
Anyway, to serve here means to do one's duty, to
Yeah.
do what one is supposed to do one's job. And we use this term when talking about politics or when talking about official positions.
Sure.
So somebody serves in office, like the president, or another politician, a minister of some kind, or you serve in the military, for example. We talk about military service.
That's right. serve, 근무하다 아니면 복무하다라는 뜻이 있어서요. serve as a non-permanent member at the UN Security Council. UN 안보리에서 비상임 이사국으로 이렇게 2년 임기를 하게 된다라는 뜻으로 serve를 쓸 수 있는 겁니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. South Korea has begun its 2-year term as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, marking the country's 3rd time serving in such role.
Countries across the globe have ushered in the new year, with many hoping for better times despite conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine.
중동 지역과 우크라이나에서 무력 충돌이 계속되고 있는 상황에서도 세계 각국의 많은 사람들이 더 나은 시대를 희망하며 2024년 새해를 맞이했습니다. 어서 오세요, usher in, right?
Yes, to welcome in the new year. And of course, we did it here. A big event here in Seoul. We had the annual tradition of the ringing of the Bushingak bell.
네, 자, 저희가 보이는 라디오로 이미지를 하나씩 띄워드리도록 하겠습니다. 서울 지금 나가고 있습니다. This was right in front of 보신각.
It's a great celebration. 33 times they rang that bell.
Yeah, exactly.
And wishing a very happy new year for everyone. I mean, some people, I'm not saying I would join them, decided to kick off the new year by swimming off the coast of Jeju.
그래요. 제주도입니다. 와, 지금 올해 이번에 새해 맞이 사진 맞나요? 와, 추웠을 텐데.
Yeah, but I mean,
상의 탈의하시는 분 굉장히 많으시네요. 바닷가 옆에서.
they say it's good for the health.
근데 서양에선 그렇게 많이 해요. 한겨울에 바닷속에 들어가서 특히 이제 새해로 넘어가는 이날 이렇게 추운 데 들어갔다 나오면 good luck다라고 해서 그런 나라들도 몇 있죠.
And I wish them all good luck.
Yes.
There were also lots going on all over Asia. I mean, we had big celebrations in Taipei, in Bangkok, in Manila, Hong Kong, Kuala Lumpur, Beijing,
Yes.
Shanghai. We had big firework displays. One country in Asia, excuse me, where they weren't celebrating was Muslim-majority Pakistan. They banned all New Year's Eve celebrations as an act of solidarity with the Palestinian people.
그러니까 지금 이제 아시아의 많은 국가들은 우리나라와 마찬가지로 새해를 맞이했습니다. They ushered in the new year. 그런데 지금 파키스탄 같은 경우에는 무슬림 국가이다
Yes.
보니까 네, 새해 여러 가지 축제 이런 것들이 아예 금지됐었군요. Those were banned.
Yes, but if we head to the Middle East, I mean, Dubai was celebrating in style. There were huge crowds assembling at the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, if you're watching on the Boynan Radio, for that gorgeous display of fireworks and lights.
이야, 지금 보라로 띄워드리고 있습니다. 두바이고요.
Yes, Moscow, on the other hand, was keeping things a little bit quiet. We still have the war in Ukraine. But in Ukraine, President Zelensky was calling on Ukrainians to shape the new year according to their own ideas and keep sight of the future of their homeland. We go further west to Paris. Over 800,000 people on the Champs-Élysées greeting the new year. And
여기는
then
숀셀리제이군요. 어마어마한 인파가 모였네요.
yeah, just so many. In the UK as well, they had Big Ben ringing in the new year and lots of fireworks. And then, of course, we can't forget about New York, where again, tens of thousands of people crowding into Times Square, with confetti and the ball dropping for 2024. Hopefully, a very good start to the new year for everybody around the world.
Exactly. 또 새해가 딱 되자마자 연인들은 이게 키스하는 전통도 있죠, 서양에서.
Yes, a kiss, a New Year's kiss is quite common.
네. 그래서 많은 나라들이 이렇게 순차적으로 새해를 각자만의 방식으로 받아들이고 또 맞이하고 이렇게 했습니다. 자, 그걸 영어로는 뭐라고 하냐면요. usher in the new year.
Yeah, to usher someone or something in is to welcome it in, to bring it in. Because you might find an usher, for example, at the theatre. If you go to see a musical or a play, there will be ushers who will welcome you in and show you to your seat. So that's where we get usher in from.
That's right. An usher is a person that shows you to your seat. 원래 자리로 안내해주는 사람을 usher라고 하는데요. usher라는 동사는 이렇게 뭔가 맞이할 때 쓸 수 있습니다. 새해를 이렇게 시작하면서 맞이했다. Usher in the new year. And people are, of course, hoping for better times.
Yes, hoping for something means you're wishing for it. You want it to happen. And better times meaning, well, better than last year.
그렇죠. 더 나은 그런 한 해를 바라면서 새해를 맞이한 전 세계 사람들입니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Countries across the globe have ushered in the new year, with many hoping for better times despite conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. Now let's move on to the next headline.
Denmark's Queen Margrethe II, Europe's longest-serving living monarch, has announced she will abdicate on January 14th after 52 years on the throne and will be succeeded by her eldest son, Crown Prince Frederik.
현존하는 유럽의 최장수 군주인 덴마크의 마그레테 2세 여왕이 오는 1월 14일 재위 52년 만에 자리에서 내려와 장남 프레드리크 왕세자에게 왕위를 물려준다고 발표했습니다.
To be fair, she's worked long into her retirement. She's 83 years old. So she's lived a long life. She's worked a long time. She ascended to the throne in 1972. Every year she's made her traditional New Year's Eve speech, and that was where she made this surprise announcement. I don't know whether anybody was really expecting it, but she came out and said it. She's had some health issues. Last February, she had a back operation, and she said that was leading to her thinking more about the future and also leaving the responsibility to the next generation. So she is the longest-serving living monarch. Of course, Queen Elizabeth II, who passed away 2 years ago, she reigned for 70 years. I think the longest-serving monarch in the whole world, in the history of the world, is Louis XIV. I think he went 72 years or something like that.
Interesting. 자, living이라는 단어가 들어감으로 인해서 현존하는이 됩니다. 영국의 엘리자베스 2세 여왕은 70년 재위했었고요. 그 다음에 이제 현존하는 덴마크의 마가레테 2세 여왕이 지금 이제 52년 재위를 했는데 이제는 내가 물러설 때가 됐다. 이렇게 신년 인사 때 밝혔습니다. 건강상의 이유인 것 같아요.
Yeah, what's curious though is that there was a point where she was never going to be queen. The law was only changed in Denmark in 1953 that she could actually become the heir to her father and become queen. So it's an interesting progress in the past 100 years, certainly in her lifetime.
And normally if you become queen or king, you keep that position until death.
Well, no, you can do. Traditionally, that's what many kings and queens do. But the other choice is to abdicate.
Yes, let's look at that term then.
To step down, to retire, to say, all right, it's your turn now, Frederick. So, for example, Queen Elizabeth II, she said, I would never abdicate. She wanted to be in that position until her last dying breath.
Her uncle did.
Yes, and people are speculating whether King Charles will abdicate at some point because he's an older king and William is in the the wings waiting, as it were. But yes, to abdicate, you won't use it for your job. You won't say, I've spent 50 years at this company and now I'm abdicating. We would just say I'm retiring.
That's right. To abdicate, 이 동사는요. 구체적으로 왕위에서 물러날 때 쓰는 표현입니다. 그래서 우리가 많이 듣는 표현은 아니지만 정말 큰 사건이죠. 어느 나라의 왕이나 여왕이 내가 지금 이 자리를 포기하겠다라고 발표하는 거니까.
You can, though, abdicate your responsibilities, which means you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Interesting. 자, 그 다음에는 to be succeeded by somebody.
Yeah, different to succeed and to succeed are two different verbs here. One means to be successful, the other means to take over.
Yep.
So, for example, if you're king or queen, you expect your son or daughter to succeed you. You will be succeeded by them. In the US, the past few years, there's been a very popular drama called Succession, which was all about a big family, tycoon, and who would take over when the father passed away, who would succeed him.
계승하다, 승계하다 이런 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 to be succeeded by 누구누구라고 하면은 내 뒤를 이어서 누구누구가 승계된다라는 뜻이 있고요. 여기서는 이제 덴마크 여왕 마거레테 II가 아들 장남이죠. Crown Prince Frederick에게 왕위를 물려주는 건데요. She will be succeeded by her son. 이렇게 표현을 합니다. Here it is again. Denmark's Queen Margrethe II, Europe's longest-serving living monarch, has announced she will abdicate on January 14th after 52 years on the throne and will be succeeded by her eldest son, Crown Prince Frederick. And here's our final headline.
Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min grabbed his 12th goal of the season on New Year's Eve to sit joint second in the goal-scoring charts with Mohamed Salah of Liverpool and Dominic Solanke of Bournemouth, also at 12 goals.
토트넘 헛스퍼의 주장 손흥민 선수가 새해 전여에 12호 골을 터뜨려 리버풀의 모하메드 살라흐, 본머스의 도미닉 솔랑케와 함께 영국 프리미어리그 득점 랭킹 공동 2위에 올랐습니다. 우리 시간으로는 이제 1월 1일이었고요. 영국에서는 이제 12월 31일이었는데 tell us more about this 12th goal.
It was a tense match. He scored the second goal for Spurs in the 71st minute of the match against Bournemouth at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. They won 3-1. That made it his 12th goal of the campaign. And also, he was voted man of the match.
Yeah.
So it was a good end to the year, or a good start to the year, depending what time zone you were in. So now he's in this three-way tie for second place. So we've got Mohamed Salah of Liverpool, Dominic Solanke of Bournemouth. They're both at 12 goals, along with Sonny. And then we have Erling Haaland of Manchester City. He is the reigning Golden Boot winner. He's got 14 goals. What's interesting, though, he's not played for a month. He's not played since December 6th because he's got a foot injury.
Oh, no.
So the goal is open, as they say. We'll have to see what happens, though, because Sonny has got a big task ahead of him. He's heading off to Abu Dhabi. Today they start training ahead of the Asian Football Confederation Asian Cup. That kicks off in Qatar on January the 12th. First Korean match is January 15th against Bahrain. I think a lot of people will be watching.
He's a busy man.
Yeah, the final schedule for February 10th. Whether Sonny will be in it or not, we'll have to wait and see.
그래요. 자, 영국에서 이 득점 왕은 골든 부트 위너라고 표현을 하고요. 지금 현재 12골로 인해서 공동 2위에 오른 선수가 3명입니다. It's a three-way tie라고 표현을 할 수도 있고요.
Yes, we use this to when we say that there's more than one person in the same position.
네.
First place tie, second place tie, three-way tie, four-way tie.
네, tie, tie 이렇게 표현할 수도 있고 아니면은 we could also say that Sonny is joint second with these other players.
Yes, so when we use joint hyphen first, second, third, whatever place, it's the same meaning here. It means there's not just one person in that position. There's more than one. It could be 2, 3, 4, 500. In this case, it's 3.
네. 여기서 joint second는 공동 2위를 말하고 있고요. 동사 sit와 같이 여기서 쓰였는데 come도 쓸 수 있고요. They came joint second.
Yeah, but in this case, we can't say that because it's not over. So that's why they're sitting.
아, 그렇군요. 이제 공동 2위로 끝난 게 아니기 때문에 순위가 또 바뀔 수 있죠. 그래서 come 동사보다는 sit 동사를 써서 지금 현재는 여기에 머물러 있다. 이런 얘기를 할 수 있겠고요. You could say they are joint second.
Yeah, because it's happening right now. But of course, once it's over, we would say they were joint second or they came joint second.
네, 그래요. 이렇게 비동사와도 같이 쓸 수 있어요. 그래서 공동 2위에 올랐다. 공동 2위에 머무르고 있다. 이렇게도 쓸 수 있는 표현 joint second. 자, 그다음에는 goal scoring charts.
Yes, goal scoring is the number of goals you score. And a chart is when you're ranking people. In this case, we're ranking footballers for who has scored the most goals. But we talk about the music charts or the movie charts in terms of what's number 1, what's number 10, what's number 312. It's a way of just ranking whatever it may be. In this case, who's scoring the most goals.
네, 득점 랭킹 goal scoring charts. 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min grabbed his 12th goal of the season on New Year's Eve to sit joint second in the goal-scoring charts with Mohamed Salah of Liverpool and Dominic Solanke of Bournemouth, also at 12 goals. And that's it for our headlines. 자, 무모한 문장 다시 알려드릴게요. 오랜 기다림이 헛되지 않았네요. 이거 영어로 보내주시고 여러분도 오래 기다리는 것이 있는지 궁금합니다. 5523님이요. 유치원 방학한 아이와 휴가 받은 엄마와 함께 듣고 있습니다. 올해
The Korean Meteorological Administration has said that the 7.6 magnitude quake that struck Japan's west coast caused minor tsunamis in waters off South Korea's east coast province of Gangwon on Monday evening.
기상청은 일본 서해안을 강타한 규모 7.6의 지진으로 인해 월요일 아침 우리나라 강원 동해안에 소규모 지진 해일이 발생했다고 밝혔습니다. This was one of the biggest news stories earlier this week.
Right.
The earthquake that struck Japan, but it seemed to have affected us somewhat as well.
Right. So South Korea reported a tsunami reaching as high as 85 centimeters in parts of the East Sea on Monday. And of course, it follows the 7.6 magnitude quake that struck Ishikawa in Japan's Noto Prefecture in Japan's west coast on New Year's Day. About 4 hours after the quake, earthquake. A tsunami wave measured at about 85 centimeters at its highest point was observed off the port of Mukho in the eastern coastal city of Donghae, about 182 kilometers east of Seoul, and that was about at 8:35 p.m. on Monday. And the major quake caused tsunamis of a smaller scale in waters off South Korea's east coast province of Gangwon on Monday evening, with nearby cities of Sokcho and Samcheok experiencing waves as high as 45 centimeters and 33 centimeters respectively. And the KMA issues tsunami warnings when the maximum vertical height of a wave reaches 50 centimeters, although they do say that waves at 20 to 30 centimeters can still cause a lot of damage.
Right. It's not every day that we see tsunamis happening around our coastlines, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, not, we don't get tsunami warnings very often here in Korea. So, but the earthquake that happened in Japan, it was a pretty big one. We mentioned it was a 7.6 magnitude quake. So it's definitely affecting the waters off of South Korea's east coast as well.
Indeed. Well, let's have a look at the first expression, and that is to strike.
Right, to strike, it means, when in this term, we're talking about a disaster. It could also mean something like a disease or other unwelcome phenomenon when it occurs suddenly and has a harmful or damaging effect.
네. 여기서 일단 지진을 주어로 보고 있고요. 그 지진이 일본의 웨스트 코스트를 어떻게 했느냐. 강타했다. strike 했다. 과거 형태로 struck라고 합니다. 자, there were minor tsunamis along the coastline here in Korea.
Yeah,
So what's that?
yeah. So minor, we also talk about major, minor. So minor, we're talking about something that is inferior in importance, size, or degree. Something major would be the opposite. So you could say that something minor would be something that is smaller. Something major would be something that is a little bit bigger. So minor, something that's comparatively unimportant, not so serious, or not involving the risk to life.
minor가 이렇게 형용사로 쓰였을 때 소규모라는 뜻이 되겠고요. 명사로 쓰는 경우도 있어요. 그럴 때는 a minor, 미성년자라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그렇다고 해서 성년을 a major라고
No.
하지는 않죠.
Not in that case, yeah.
No, that's right. 쓰나미는 지진 해일이고요. 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. The Korea Meteorological Administration has said that the 7.6 magnitude quake that struck Japan's west coast caused minor tsunamis in waters off South Korea's east coast province of Gangwon on Monday evening. All right, let's move on to the second headline.
The Korean government has announced that low seniority civil servants will receive up to a 6% pay increase from last year, and allowances for disaster response officials will be newly established and expanded.
올해부터 국내 저연차 공무원의 보수가 지난해보다 최대 6% 인상되며 재난 대응 공무원에 대한 수당도 신설 확대된다는 정부 발표가 있었습니다. Tell us more.
Right, so this is in response to comments that starting salaries for younger and low seniority public officials or public servants are lower than those in the public sector or private sector, excuse me. And it's also part of measures to stop these young government employees from leaving public service due to, of course, the difference or the gap in the wage. So paid salaries for national and local government officials will increase by 2.5% year on year. Meanwhile, the first salary for level 9 civil servants will be raised by an additional 3.5%, and that brings the total increase for them to 6% year on year. And the same goes for entry-level military officials, such as lieutenants and sergeants. Their first paychecks will also be increased by 6%. And they say housing allowances will be also expanded to include soldiers with less than 3 years of service. So those that will be starting their military services, and there will be new and expanded stipends for disaster response officials to discourage the shunning of this disaster work and strengthen reward systems or allowance systems as well.
아까 얘기했던 그 저연차 공무원 영어식으로는 low seniority civil servants라고 했는데 이제 한마디로는 청년 공무원 말하고 있는 것이죠.
Yeah.
그래서 그 보수가 최대 6% 인상이 된다. 그다음에는 이제 군 간부 같은 경우에는 아까 lieutenants and sergeants
Yeah, so
소위와
entry
하사?
levels. Yeah,
네.
entry level military officials.
네. 그다음에는 또 이제 병장 같은 경우에는 최대 125만 원의 월급을 또 받게 된다고 합니다. 병장 봉급이 원래 이제 100만 원이었는데요. 125만 원으로 인상이 된다라는 이제 정부 발표예요.
Yeah, it does sound a bit low if you do think about it, compared to what people receive in the private sector. Because even in the private sector, we've been saying that with inflation, everything's been going up except for our paychecks.
Exactly, that is true. All right, well, let's have a look at this expression here, a pay increase.
Right, so pay increase is exactly that. It's a rise in your pay, which is talking about our salary.
보수 아니면 급여 인상을요, pay increase라고 하고요. What about disaster response officials?
Right, so disaster response officials will be, government officials or public servants in charge of those actions taken directly before, during, or in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, such as a tsunami that we just mentioned,
Right.
or an earthquake, fires, anything like that.
재난 대응 공무원입니다. 역시 마찬가지로 재난 대응 공무원에 대한 수당도 이렇게 확대가 된다라는 내용이 정부 발표에 있었고요. 아무래도 이런 재난이 발생했을 때 기피 현상을 줄이기 위한 그런 목적이다라고 설명을 하고 있습니다. 또 이제 교원 같은 얘기도
Yes.
교원 같은 경우에도 선생님들도요. 이제 담임 교사의 교직 수당도 올라간다라는 얘기도 해주셨고 다양하게 이번에 발표가 됐습니다. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. The Korean government has announced that low seniority civil servants will receive up to a 6% pay increase from last year. And allowances for disaster response officials will be newly established and expanded.
Japan's geodetic survey system has recorded significant land movement following Monday's 7.6 magnitude earthquake, with a reference station in Wajima moving 1.3 meters westward.
일본 국토지리원은 지난 월요일에 발생한 규모 7.6의 지진으로 와지마시의 기준 관측점이 서쪽으로 1.3m 움직이는 등 큰 지각 변동이 관측됐다고 밝혔습니다. This was a massive earthquake, wasn't it?
Yeah, massive earthquake. So they're saying that the quake may have shifted land in the Noto region by up to 1.3 meters to the west. And the Noto region was near the epicenter of this earthquake. And this is according to Japan's Geospatial Information Authority, or the GSI, which looked at GPS data. And they say that preliminary figures indicate that an observation point in Wajima City in Ishikawa Prefecture saw the biggest shift, moving horizontally about 1.3 meters to the west, and they are planning to continue analyzing the data for other movements. And in the meantime, they're saying that at least 57 people have been killed by the earthquake, and this is according to Japan's public broadcaster NHK.
네. 지금까지 집계된 사망자 수가 57명으로 늘어났고요. 이 지진으로 인해서 지각이 이게 변동이 되는 일까지 있었다고 합니다. 자, 여기서 기준이 되는 그 기준 관측점을 여기서 reference station이라고 하네요.
Right. So a reference station, they use this thing called a GNSS receiver, and it has a known position. So they use that as a point of reference. So that reference station, it transmits messages that a rover receiver uses to calculate position. So basically, it's a point of reference.
It's a point of reference. 네, 기준이 되는 어떤 지점, point of reference라고 하는데요. 여기서는 reference station입니다. 자, 방향을 보니까 it moved westward.
Right. So westward means towards the west or in a westerly direction.
그러면 만약에 동쪽으로 움직였으면 eastward.
Eastward, yes.
네, 이렇게 표현하면 되겠죠. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Japan's geodetic survey system has recorded significant land movement following Monday's 7.6 magnitude earthquake, with a reference station in Wajima moving 1.3 meters westward. Now here's our next headline.
Italy's oldest man, who credited light meals and no stress for his longevity, has died at the age of 111.
평소 가벼운 식사와 스트레스 없는 생활을 장수의 비결로 꼽았던 이탈리아 최고령 남성이 111세의 나이로 세상을 떠났습니다. Okay, well, what was his name?
His name is Tripoli Giannini, and he lived near Tuscany, and he has passed away on New Year's Eve. He was the second oldest man in Europe after André Ludwig, a Frenchman who is 75 days older, and he was 111 years and 133 days old. And Giannini was among Italy's growing number of centenarians. According to figures, they say that there are 22,000 people aged over 100 in 2023, which was the largest number recorded. And of course, the vast majority of them were women. And he used to belong to the Italian Army Infantry Corps. He was born in Cesena in 1912. He lived through 2 world wars and 2 pandemics. And during celebrations for his 111th birthday last August, he said the secrets to his longevity were light meals, always accompanied with wine,
Oh.
no stress, being a non-smoker, and treating each day as a gift. I think that kind of goes along with, what we talked about today in the opening.
Yeah, definitely. 자, 장수의 비결로 이제 가벼운 식사, light meals. 그런데 늘 와인과 함께 했대요. Always accompanied with wine. 그리고 특히 이제 no stress뿐만 아니라 treating each day as a gift. 매일매일이 선물이다 라는 생각으로 살다 보니까
Yeah.
그래서 오래 살 수 있었다 이렇게 얘기를 했다고 하고요.
Right.
저 아드님이 유머 감각이 있는 것 같아요. 우리 아버지는 불멸의 그런 인간, 신 그렇게 스스로를 느끼는 줄 알았어요. He believed he was immortal.
Yeah.
그런데 돌아가셨습니다. 라고 굉장히 뭐라 그럴까요? 물론 굉장히
Of
슬프겠지만
course.
또 이거를 happy occasion으로 아버지를 축하하는 그 느낌이 좀 있거든요. 그래서 우리 아버지가 40년 동안이나 먼저 떠나셔서 기다리고 계신 우리 어머니를 드디어 만나러 가셨어요.
Finally, right?
네, 네. 서양에 이런 문화가 가끔 있어요. 어떤 풍습이냐면은 돌아가신 분들에 대해서 축하를 해주는 그분의 인생을 축하하는 그 분위기가 여기서도 좀 느껴져요.
Yeah, because I mean, of course, it's very sad, but you
그쵸.
want to celebrate what
그럼요.
they stood for, their life, what they've accomplished, and that's that moment.
맞아요. 물론 돌아가신 것은 당연히 너무나 슬픈 일이지만 또 그동안 살았던 인생에 대해서 이런 점도 너무 좋았고 이것도 참 존경스럽고 이분의 인생이 이래서 박수칠 만하다라고 이렇게 축하해주는 느낌. 자, 표현 보도록 하겠습니다. The first one is to credit something.
To credit. So he credited light meals and no stress as the secret to his longevity. So if you credit something, it means to consider usually favorably as the source, the agent, or performer of an action or the possessor of a trait.
Credit A for B 라고 얘기하면은요, B를 A의 공으로 이렇게 돌린다는 뜻이 되겠죠. So in this case, he credited light meals and no stress for his long life. 그러니까 이 장수의 비결은 바로 이렇게 가벼운 식사와 스트레스 없이 사는 것이다 라고 공을 돌린 겁니다. 자, 그다음에는 longevity.
Longevity, it means long life, or it could also mean long existence or service.
Sure. 네, 장수예요. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어볼까요? Italy's oldest man, who credited light meals and no stress for his longevity, has died at the age of 111. Let's move on to the final headline.
Ashes from the cremated body of a Canadian woman who was a huge Star Trek fan and died 12 years ago are to be in one of 250 memorial capsules set to be launched into space later this month.
TV SF 드라마 스타트rek의 열혈 팬으로 12년 전에 사망한 어느 캐나다 여성의 화장된 유해 일부가 이달 말 250개의 추모 캡슐 중 하나에 실려 우주로 보내질 예정입니다. Oh, okay. So tell us about the fan.
So not only was she a huge Star Trek fan, but she was also a mother of 8, and she was 86 at the time of her death 12 years ago. So
Okay.
a small quantity of ashes from her cremated body are to be in one of these 250 memorial capsules, which are set to be launched into space later this month. And the launch organizers, they're hoping that these rocket carrying the capsules will wind up approximately 330 million kilometers from Earth,
Wow.
roughly past the orbit of Mars. And not only will her remains be in these capsules, they're also going to be carrying DNA samples of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, as well as the original series stars.
Gloria Nolan, I think her name
Yes,
was.
her name's Gloria Nolan. Yeah.
She seems to have been quite the fan.
Quite the fan,
apparently.
yeah, yeah. And
Every Christmas, she had Star Trek memorabilia.
And not only the stars, but I do remember reading about this article. Other people related to Star Trek, I think, people that were related to the making of it, other celebrities, I think, will be included in this.
Yeah.
And there's also a Korea connection.
Oh, what's that?
Because the K-pop boy band TAN, they're a relatively new group, but they have this song called Walking on the Moon. And the song will also be included on this flight as well.
Oh, very cool. Okay, the first expression to look at here is cremated.
Right. So cremated, when we dispose of a dead person's body by burning it into ashes, typically after a funeral ceremony, we say that it is cremated.
화장됐다라고 할 때요, cremated라고 합니다. 여기서는 이제 화장된 유해를 말하고 있죠. cremated body. 자, 그리고 set to be 뭐뭐뭐.
Set to be means it's ready to be or prepared to be or be on the point to do something.
뭐뭐 할 예정이다. set to be니까요. 뭐뭐 될 예정이다. Here's the headline again. Ashes from the cremated body of a Canadian woman who was a huge Star Trek fan and died 12 years ago are to be in one of 250 memorial capsules set to be launched into space later this month.
Student enrollment in elementary schools nationwide is expected to drop below 400,000 for the first time this year due to the nation's rock bottom birth rate, according to officials citing data from the Education and Interior Ministries.
자, 교육부와 행정안전부 자료를 인용한 관계자들에 따르면 갈수록 심화하는 저출생 현상으로 인해 올해 초등학교에 입학하는 학생 수가 사상 처음으로 40만 명을 밑돌 것으로 예상됩니다. Less and less students.
Yeah, so, we hear about the low birth rate, Korea's dwindling population, there are fears that the Korean race is dying out. So they're saying that about 413,056 children are actually eligible to
Okay.
enter elementary school this year. The school year officially begins in March, but they say that the actual number of students that enroll is about 90% of that number. So the number of first-year elementary school students is expected to remain in the mid to late 300,000 range this year. And enrollment will decrease further below 300,000 in 2 years, as they say the number of children born in 2019 who will enter elementary schools in 2026 is only 302,676.
Did you go to elementary school in Korea, Karen?
I did. I
remember-
went to first and second grade. I think
Okay.
half of second grade. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember how many
Oh.
kids there were in your class.
We had over 50 students in my class.
There you go.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's my
yeah.
point. Now, of course, it's around 25, I think.
when
yeah.
Joshua was in third grade, fourth grade, he had about 18 students.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So less than 20 in
Yeah.
some schools.
Yeah.
Exactly. 그래요. 몇십 년 전까지만 해도 뭐 한 반에 50명 뭐 기본이었죠.
Yeah.
그런데 이제 지금은 20명. 뭐 어떤 학교는 20명도 안 되는 경우도 있고요. 지금 일단은 초등학교에 입학할 수 있는 잠재적인 학생의 수는 41만 명 정도가 되지만 여러 가지 사정으로 인해서 대체적으로 이 숫자의 한 90% 정도만 초등학교에 입학을 하고요. 그 외에는 뭐 이민이라든지 아니면은 이런저런 이유로 1년 보류할 수도 있고요. 뭐 건강상의 이유 등등로 인해서 100%가 다 초등학교 입학하지는 않는답니다.
Of course.
네, 그래서 이번에 아마 한 40만 명 아래로 초등학교 입학생들이 떨어지지 않을까라는 얘기가 있어요. Okay, let's have a look at our first expression. It's student enrollment.
Right. So enrollment, let's take a look first at the spelling of this word. I think for British people, there's one L. If you're American, we use two L's. So remember that when you are spelling enrollment. Now, the meaning is the process of initiating attendance to a school.
enrollment라는 게 학교 입학하는 걸 말해요. 그래서 student enrollment, 입학하는 학생의 수를 이렇게 표현하고 있습니다. What about hit rock bottom?
Right. Rock bottom. This means at the lowest possible level.
rock bottom은 그냥 bottom도 아니고요. 완전히 밑바닥이란 뜻입니다. rock는 바위죠. 그래서 저 아래 바닥에 뭐 바위가 있는 곳까지 간다는 뜻인지 이제 정말 밑바닥이라고 할 때는 rock bottom이라고 해요. 그래서 지금 여기서 말하는 거는 출산율이 너무 많이 떨어지고 있다라는 거를 좀 드라마틱하게 표현하고 있네요.
Yes.
This is due to Korea's rock bottom birth rate. 지금 실제로도 계속해서 여러 해 동안 나온 기록 중에 가장 낮은 그런 birth rate를 보고 있으니까요. Here's the headline again. Student enrollment in elementary schools nationwide is expected to drop below 400,000 for the first time this year due to the nation's rock-bottom birth rate, according to officials, citing data from the Education and Interior Ministries. Let's move on to the second headline.
Korea's average temperature last year marked 13.7 degrees Celsius, the highest annual mean temperature since 1973, the year considered the starting point for weather records in South Korea.
지난해 우리나라 평균 기온이 13.7도를 기록해 국내 기상 기록의 기준 시점으로 삼는 1973년 이후 가장 높은 연평균 기온을 나타냈습니다. Okay, so this time we're looking at global warming. So
I don't
all
know.
these issues.
Yeah, more apocalyptic news, I feel like. So we're dying out. the temperatures are climbing.
Yeah.
So 2023 was the warmest year of all time, I guess, since we've been keeping records here in South Korea. The average temperature hit 13.7 degrees for the year, and it was since 1973 when they began keeping records for these types of things.
Yeah.
It exceeds the previous top record of 13.4 degrees Celsius, which was set back in 2016. And they say that last month, the weather stayed warm by and large, excluding when a cold snap gripped the country for about a week in mid-December. It was an unusually warm month.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and the average temperature nationwide recorded below freezing temperatures from December 16th to 25th. And also, while the temperature was moderately warm last year, there was also a lot of rain. The average annual rainfall recorded 1,740.3 millimeters last year, and that was the second highest on record since 2003.
작년에 연평균 기온이 우리나라의 이제 기상 기록상 가장 높은 기온을 기록했다. I remember thinking, why is it so warm for so long?
Yeah.
Even after summer was over,
Yeah.
it felt like it really wasn't. And then it suddenly, as you said, the cold snap came and it
Yeah.
suddenly became a little bit cold. But now again, we're seeing the temperatures fluctuate a little. Let's have a look at this term here, the mean temperature.
Right, I think we talked about mean before. It just means average. So when we're talking about the mean temperature, it means the average temperature.
It's right in the middle, isn't
Yep.
it? Yeah. And this is different to Mean Girls. the
No,
movie.
no. When we're talking about mean girls, we're talking about someone that's not very nice.
영화 Mean Girls에서의 mean은 나쁘다, 못됐다 이런 뜻이 있어요. 그렇지만 mean temperature에서의 mean이라는 것은 평균을 말하죠. 중간을 말하고 있습니다. 자, 그래서 mean temperature가 여기에 나와 있고, 자, 그 다음에는 starting point.
Starting point is a place or a position where something begins.
이제 시작 시점인데요. 여기서 말하는 게 1973년이라는 이 해가 우리나라에서 기상 기록의 어떤 기준 시점이다. 그때부터 이제 시작된다라고 볼 수 있겠어요. 기록들이. 그렇게 봤을 때 연평균 기온이 작년에 가장 높았다. Here's the headline again. Korea's average temperature last year marked 13.7 degrees Celsius, the highest annual mean temperature since 1973, the year considered the starting point for weather records in South Korea.
Quick thinking, calmness, and shoots were the key factors that allowed hundreds of passengers and crew members to safely evacuate a Japanese airliner before it was fully engulfed in flames on Tuesday, according to passengers' testimonies and experts' observations.
승객들의 증언과 전문가들의 견해에 따르면 지난 화요일 일본 여객기가 화염에 휩싸이는 사고 직전 수백 명의 승객들과 승무원들이 안전하게 대피할 수 있었던 데는 빠른 판단과 침착함 그리고 비상 슬라이드가 큰 역할을 했던 것으로 나타났습니다. All right, so there was a collision, wasn't there?
That's right. So it seems like we're getting some more disaster news coming in from Japan. We reported on a devastating earthquake yesterday, but there was a plane that was engulfed in flames. Thankfully, everyone was safely evacuated from the plane in just 20 minutes. So hundreds of passengers and crew members managed to safely get out of the plane. There were 379 people on board the JAL Flight 516, and it included 8 children under the age of 2, and they all survived after the plane they were on crashed into a plane that was operated by the Japan Coast Guard at Tokyo's Haneda Airport on Tuesday. Unfortunately, 5 people on the Coast Guard plane died. And the Coast Guard plane was actually set out to fly to Niigata to deliver aid to victims of the 7.8 magnitude quake.
So we're looking at 2 different types of planes.
Yeah.
One was a passenger plane.
Yeah.
Another one was a Coast Guard aircraft. Now, the 5 people on the Coast Guard aircraft tragically died from this accident. However, on the passenger plane, everyone survived.
They were able to evacuate. This is amazing news, actually. You know, if you think about it, nearly 400 people getting out of that huge plane in just 20 minutes. It's really amazing.
Yes, very, very quick thinking. It says here they were able to evacuate.
Yeah. So evacuate, it means if people evacuate a place, they are moving out of it for a period of time, especially because it's a dangerous situation.
대피하다, evacuate. 그리고 대피는 evacuation이고요. What about according to people's testimonies?
So testimonies, we use this when we're talking about proof or evidence. And it can be spoken, but it can also be written statements of something that is true. And we usually use this when we're talking about legal stuff. So, we say this was a testimony given in a court of law. So we're talking about legal terms.
증언입니다. testimony. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Quick thinking, calmness, and shoots were the key factors that allowed hundreds of passengers and crew members to safely evacuate a Japanese airliner before it was fully engulfed in flames on Tuesday, according to passengers' testimonies and experts' observations. Here's our 4th headline.
Finland and Sweden have recorded the coldest temperatures of the winter so far, with thermometers falling to minus 40 degrees Celsius or even lower as a cold spell grips the Nordic region.
북유럽 지역에 한파가 몰아치면서 핀란드와 스웨덴의 기온이 영하 40도 이하까지 내려가 올겨울 최저 기온을 기록했습니다. Tell us more, Karen.
Right, so Finland and Sweden, they've recorded the coldest temperatures of the winter with the thermometers falling to minus 40 degrees. They say that the freezing conditions have caused substantial problems for train travel in these regions.
Right.
And what's worse is that they say that it's about to get worse as they've issued the second highest warnings for snow and wind. In Denmark, they say that the road Association there, they've closed a key bridge to vehicles with light trailers because of strong winds that can affect driving, and heavy snow is expected over the northern part of that country as well. In Finland, they say that the coldest reading of its winter so far was recorded in the northwestern town of Ilivieska, where the temperature fell to minus 37.8 degrees Celsius on Tuesday local time.
Wow. So this is far from the end of this cold that we're seeing in Northern Europe here. Grip is the first expression to look at.
Right. So grip, when you grip something, you're taking hold of it with your hand, you're holding it very firmly, but it also means to have control over something or someone.
grip라는 동사는 이제 꽉 붙잡다 이런 뜻이 있어서요. 장악하다가 될 수도 있고 그 다음에는 날씨 얘기할 때 이런 날씨에 휩싸인 지역, 지금 이런 날씨로 인해서 전국적으로 아니면 이 경우는 이 지역이 다 상당히 기온이 많이 떨어졌다라는 걸 강조하려고 마치 꽉 잡고 있는 것 같다라고 했습니다. The cold spell has gripped this region. 자, 어떤 region이냐? Nordic region.
Right. So Nordic region, it includes countries in Northern Europe. It's sometimes referred to, or these countries are sometimes referred to as Scandinavian countries like Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland.
아하, Scandinavian countries라고도 하고요. 우리가 북유럽이라고 하잖아요. 몇 년 전에 북유럽 그 인테리어가 상당히 유행이었죠. 근데 영어식으로는 Nordic region이라고 하면 북유럽 지역이 되겠어요. 그러면은 이제 북유럽 패션이라고 하면은 Nordic fashion이라고 할 수도 있겠죠. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Finland and Sweden have recorded the coldest temperatures of the winter so far, with temperatures falling to minus 40 degrees Celsius or even lower, as a cold spell grips the Nordic region. Now let's move on to our final headline.
The U.S. has started nighttime operations to reduce deer populations and protect and restore native plants in some of its national parks in Maryland and Washington, D.C.
미국 정부가 메릴랜드와 워싱턴 DC의 국립공원에 있는 사슴 개체수를 줄이고 야생식물을 보호 및 복원하기 위한 야간 작전에 돌입했습니다. So I guess there's too many deer.
Yeah, too many deer.
Yeah.
So they said that they began operations on Tuesday to reduce the deer population in some of its national parks. So in other words, they're probably going to be hunted down. I lived in this area actually.
Did you?
And some of my friends who they're still living in the city, but if they had big backyards, they would have deer visiting them in their backyard. So they're pretty very often found, and when you're driving at night, they would sometimes come out and scare you. So they're very they're just kind of out there, kind of like how kangaroos are kind of out there
In Australia. Yeah.
Right. So they're going to be posting temporary nighttime road and trail closures to make sure that visitors and people who are there are safe during these reduction activities, since they're going to be hunting these deer down. If there are too many deer, overabundant deer, they damage the forest regeneration in areas, across Maryland and the DC area. And they say that vegetation damage occurs when the deer population exceeds 20 per square mile.
Right.
So they have to be managed.
1제곱마일당 사슴 20마리 이상이 되면은요, 이제 너무 사슴이 많은 것으로 칠 수 있기 때문에 그럴 때는 특히 이런 공원이 공원에게 좋지 않다고 합니다. 그래서 개체수를 좀 줄이는데 초점을 맞추고 있는 것이고요. 여기서 말하는 야간 작업, 영어로는 nighttime operations.
Have you had deer meat before?
No, I haven't.
Well, apparently they say that so they're going to hunt these deer down and they're going to donate some of the meat from the
Okay.
reduction activities. And for your information, deer meat, it's called venison.
Ah, right.
Yeah, and it's some people like it. I think some
Have you
people.
tried it?
I haven't tried it, but I heard it's a little gamey. But there are people who are fans of it, so I guess they're gonna try to put it to good use.
네. 고기 이름들은 다 달라요. 우리 소고기와 그다음에 소, beef and cow. 돼지고기와 돼지, pork and pig.
Yeah.
사슴고기와 사슴, venison and deer네요. 자, 그리고 deer의 복수 형태는 그냥 deer예요.
Yeah. No deers.
deers 할 수도 있긴 하다고 사전에 보면은
Yeah,
나와
yeah.
있지만 그 흔치는 않습니다. 대부분은 그냥 s 없이 복수도 그렇게 쓴다는 거. 자, nighttime operation이 바로 야간 작업이고요.
Right. So nighttime, it's something that's done at night.
그다음에 native plants.
Right. So native, something that's native to a particular region, it means that they live or grow there naturally.
네. 우리가 이제 원어민 말할 때 네이티브 스피커라고 하잖아요.
Right. They grew up in that region.
Right.
They weren't brought there.
네이티브라는 게 토종이라는 의미가 있어요. 거기에서 나서 자란 이런 느낌이 있는데 native people이라는 표현 자체는 원주민이라는 뜻이고 native plants 그러면은 그 지역에서 나서 자란 그런 식물 토종이라는 의미가 있습니다. 사람한테 이제 토박이다라고 할 때도 this person is a native of this region 이렇게 말할 수도 있겠죠? Here's the headline again. The US has started nighttime operations to reduce deer populations and protect and restore native plants in some of its national parks in Maryland and Washington, D.C. Well, that's it for our headlines.